Hi, it's Courtney, back again with more horror movies to view for Halloween from my own personal collection. Um, so, first of all, it's been really fun actually talking about these movies, not in a lot of depth, but since I have so many, I like getting on here and talking about them and sharing my favorites um, with people out there. Um, so. I don't know how long this is going to run with all of these, but, okay, first off, in another decorative sleeve, I have The Exorcist, one of the scariest horror movies of all time, although I didn't find it that scary. Like I said, I saw it when I was like 12 or 13 with its sequel, Exorcist 2, The Heretic, and so it didn't scare me, but it's still a good movie. And I have read the book by William Peter Blatty, so it the movie does follow the book very faithfully. So like a lot of people, I'm not very fond of like the opening because I've heard some people say that they find the opening kind of unnecessary or boring. Um, I guess it's meant to kind of show one of our characters that we're going to get to know later in the film, Father Marin, the quote-unquote exorcist of the film. But so it's set in a dig in Iraq, and I find it kind of tedious. But then after that, it switches to Georgetown, where we meet Chris McNeil, who's an actress played by Ellen Burstyn, and she has a daughter who's 12 named Reagan, played by Linda Blair, and Chris and her husband are separated, and so it's just Chris and Reagan and Chris's assistant Sharon, played by Kitty Wynn, and one day Reagan shows her mom that she's been playing with a Ouija board, or Ouija, whichever way you prefer it, but she's been talking to somebody that she calls Captain Howdy, and the planchet, the thing that moves around the board, moves by, itself. I mean, you can clearly see that Reagan's not moving it at that point, but a lot of other weird things happen. There are noises in the attic, and then one night at a party that Chris is hosting, Reagan comes down to the party and says to a guest there, who's an astronaut, that he is going to die on this mission that he goes on, and she urinates on the carpet, but she's been sick. So later that night, though, the bed starts shaking with Reagan in it, and Chris gets on bed and it still shakes. So things progress where Reagan's personality starts to change, and after going through a lot of tests and stuff, the idea that maybe she's, possessed pops up. So Chris goes to see Father Damien Karras, played by Jason Miller, to try to get him to perform an exorcism on Reagan, and he ends up having to have another priest help him with it because he's a younger priest and he needs a more experienced one. That's when Father Marin comes into the picture, and so yeah, there's a lot of foul language and a little bit of frightening imagery, but more of the scares are kind of like psychological of, all these terrible things happening to this little girl, and her mother can't do anything about it. And Damien Karras is going through his own arc where he's kind of lost his faith in his religion, and his mother passes away. She was in her apartment for a while, and something happened to her where she had to be taken to the hospital, and they end up taking her home, and she ends up dying there by herself, and Damien's kind of guilty about what happens to his mother. But so there's a lot of human and psychological things going on with this movie, but a lot of people, know it for the language and some disturbing kind of imagery. But it didn't frighten me a lot. So, but it's still a really good movie. This one is the extended director's cut. It's kind of actually more like a long time ago they had one where they had The Exorcist, the version you've never seen, and it's basically the same thing. So that's why it's an extended director's cut. But yeah, I got this one with the Monster Mayhem, like like my Poltergeist one, where it's just more kind of artsy work of the actual cover art. But so to me, it's not that scary, but I still like it and enjoy it. This next one I have it in a sleeve. It's from Scream Factory, and it's still got all these stickers on it. So, but first time on DVD, and it is the film Deadly Blessing, directed by Wes Craven, and I'm gonna have to read the back because it's been a while since I watched it, but a young woman, her husband dies, and he used to be a member of this they say it's a cult, but it's kind of more like a Hittites, kind of like an Amish kind of sect, and she kind of begins to experience things threatening her life, and her two friends come to visit her, and the leader of the cult is actually her former father-in-law, played by Ernest Borgnine, and so the main female character, Martha, is played by Maren Jensen from Battlestar Galactica. She also dated Don Henley in the 80s, and it also has Susan Buckner, who most people know as Patty Simcox from Grease, and it has a young Sharon Stone. So there's also Lisa Hartman, now more commonly known as Lisa Hartman Black, married to Clint Black, and Michael Berryman, who's from The Hills Have Eyes, another Wes Craven film. So he's kind of a horror icon with his tall stature and his bald head. But I of course had to get it because I love Wes Craven. He's one of my favorite directors, and I it's really sad that he's no longer with us. But I love Wes Craven's movies, all of them. So I'm going to put this back in the sleeve, but as you can see, it's got a bunch of stickers on it when I bought it for $19.99, and of course it has the sticker telling it that it's the first time on DVD. So it was made in 1981, so it's a pretty good film. It's it's got twists and turns around it, and of course, since I haven't seen it in a long while, I can't really spoil too much of it. But there's two memorable scenes. One with Maren Jensen in the bathtub with a snake, and then a scene with Sharon Stone and a spider. And I'm just gonna leave that one at that because it kind of used to be the cover art of like earlier releases and stuff. But I like this new cover. it's 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 just awesome. I mean, look at this artwork. I could never draw anything like that or paint anything like this, but yeah, I do I do like this film. It is a little kind of slow paced, but and you really have to pay attention to what's going on, or you're gonna miss things that have happened. But yeah, and Ernest Borgnine is just, he's got this vibe about him where he can be very creepy, and he kind of reminds me of the other role where he was kind of like a crazy cult leader in The Devil's Reign. You know, I haven't seen that one in its complete entirety, but I've seen it in bits and pieces, and so yeah, he's kind of creepy, but so Deadly Blessing, kind of underrated Wes Craven film that is very worth checking out. All right, and I got this at Meyer, and I'm gonna have to take it out of its sleeve too, because the front of it's like one of those like hologram kind of ones where you like twist it a certain way, it changes the image. But another favorite horror movie of mine. This is, of course, the original Amityville Horror from 1979 with Margot Kidder and James Brolin. And, of course, it's based on a true story, because some people believe it is true and some people don't. Some people think it was publicity. But anyway, the real part of the story is the year before all of this stuff happened, there was an actual murder where Ronnie DeFeo actually killed the members of his family, saying that voices told him to do it. So, a year after the murders, George and Kathy Lutz and Kathy's 3 children from her previous marriage moved into the house, and after 28 days, they left, and they left everything behind in the house, because they claimed that it was haunted, and weird stuff was happening within the house. And so I'm not sure if I believe it or not, but I do like this movie, and you know, I like the chemistry between James Brolin and Margot Kidder. So it, you know, makes them seem like, you know, a real loving couple, and being torn apart by the things that are happening in the house, like weird noises and like this black tar coming up from, you know, the toilets and coming out of the sink, and the little girl says that she can see this imaginary friend of hers that she calls Jody, and she says that it's, you know, a pig, and a pig with glowing red eyes, and it's kind of creepy. And there's supposed to be like a red room down in the basement that's a passageway to hell, and so just all this stuff happens, and you know, part of you in the back of your mind is thinking, did stuff like this really happen? Because some people who have lived in the house after the Lutzes claim they've never experienced any of the things that the Lutz family did. So, you know, no noises, no, you know, phantom sounds of things not being there, and so it also has a Rod Steiger in it as a priest who goes to, you know, bless the house, and he starts being tormented outside of the house by whatever's in the house. And he eventually, you know, tries to stay away from the Lutz family, because he tries to help in the beginning, and every time he tries to help, bad things happen to him even more. And but I like this movie. It's got a eerie atmosphere in parts of it, and then the rest of it, you know, the dynamic of, you know, Margot Kidder and James Brolin makes the film, worth watching, and you're rooting for the family, to not be torn apart by everything that's happening to them. And I have seen the remake of it with Ryan Reynolds, and I kind of I don't hate it, but I hate things that they did to it, where they kind of focus more on Ryan Reynolds being sexy, and the biggest thing that gets on my nerves is in the book, because I read the book too. They have a family dog named Harry, and in this movie, George goes back to save the dog when they're getting ready, to leave that final night. He goes back and saves the dog, and in the remake, he kills the dog. I have a dog. I love animals, and it's just something unnecessary to add more blood and gore to a movie that I think should be more suspenseful. And like I said, most 70s movies have that, atmosphere about them where it is, it's creepy, and, sometimes you let your mind wonder what's going to happen next. And like I said, you don't have to just, depend on nudity and a bunch of blood to get your point across. And, there's no blood in this that is, unnecessary. It's necessary, and it doesn't really actually kind of happen, with, slicing or dicing somebody apart. But, so, the original Amityville Horror is probably the one that I would recommend you watching. It might be a little slow pace, but like I said, it's got that creepy atmosphere and a great score by Lalo Schifrin, and the beginning theme of the Amityville Horror does kind of creep me out a little bit. If you're one of those people where creepy children kind of creep you out, then you'll understand where I'm coming from. But so yeah, I mean, it's not like I don't like remakes. I like remakes, but I just don't think you have to unnecessarily add something to it just to make it, scarier. It can just be scary the way it is. Next up, another holographic sleeve that I've got to get this thing out of. Okay. And it is Jeepers Creepers. And this is one of those movies where you feel like you have to take a shower after you watch it, because there's so much going on in it with there's dead bodies and this creature, and it's just you just feel after watching it. And it's about a brother and sister, played by Justin Long and Gina Phillips, and they're heading home from college, and they are almost run off the road by this creepy ass truck. And when they're driving by later, they see the same truck at this abandoned church dumping something down a pipe, and it looks like it's a body. So of course Derry, the brother, wants to go back, but the sister Trish doesn't want to, but they end up going back anyway. And the brother finds that there are dead bodies stitched together up on the ceiling, like this really disgusting, gross kind of tapestry. And so eventually the person that's in the truck starts to come after them, but after a while they find out that it's not a person at all. It's this terrifying monster, and he can smell your fear. And if he finds something in your fear that he likes, he will come after you. And he will, take whatever he needs from you to survive. So he needs your tongue or your eyes or your brain. That's what he's going to take to sustain himself. And he comes back, like every 23 years to just eat. And so I didn't want to watch this movie for the longest time because I was afraid that it would, really scare me. And it doesn't scare me that much, but it does kind of unnerve me a little bit. Like I said, it gives you that feeling like, oh, you want to like take a shower. And so it's not like a typical kind of slasher movie. It's, it's supernatural and just unnerving. And so I mean, I've seen the second one, Jeepers Creepers 2, and it's just the same as the first one, unnerving and kind of creepy, and you just feel like you can't like turn your back because you don't know what's going to be coming out of the shadows at you. And the creeper is really terrifying, and so he's probably the thing that scares me the most. Everything else around it is really like atmospheric and dark and kind of dank a little bit, and but still it's a pretty good movie. The Jeepers Creepers 2 is pretty good. I've yet to see the third one, but so, and yeah, it will unnerve you a little bit, but so try to get this back in here. I hate that I have to take them out of the sleeves, but there's like stickers and everything on it, and I don't know. It's kind of hard to see the holographic quality of it too, just like a My Amityville Horror one. And I have to keep taking them out of the sleeves because every time I buy them, they've got like stickers on them. So this next movie, I have it's got two versions on it. It's unrated and theatrical. It's got stickers on it because I got it. It was originally like $26.99, and then I got it on sale for $19.99. So, but it is Drag Me to Hell, directed by Sam Raimi, famous for his Evil Dead movies, and the first horror movie that he did in like years, because he worked on doing the Spider-Man trilogy. And like I said, it has unrated and theatrical versions on here. So, okay, Christine Brown, played by Alison Lohman, is, she's a nice person. She works at a bank, and she's a girl that is kind of very introverted a little bit, kind of like a Shrinking Violet kind of person. But she grew up where she used to be a lot heavier, and she's lost weight, and she's trying to like better herself to be more confident, and she's trying to get a promotion at her job. And she has a boyfriend played by Justin Long from Jeepers Creepers, and his parents don't really think that Christine's right for him because she comes from like a farming family that's not as upper class as his family is. So one day a gypsy woman named Sylvia Ganesh comes in to try to get an extension on her mortgage to keep her house from being taken away. And Christine uses that opportunity to try to impress her boss, to try to get this promotion that she wants. and she ends up, refusing Mrs. Yanish the extension, and she, gets on her hands and knees and begs for her to help, and um, Christine refuses, and so Sylvia Yanish is like, "You shamed me," and they're already trying to imply that she's really creepy. She has like either a cataract or a fake eye, and she has false teeth, and they just try to make this woman seem kind of like a hag from like a children's bedtime story. But I think that's just kind of the way we see it through Christine's eyes, I think. But when Christine's going home, Sylvia Ganesh attacks her and tears a button off of her coat. And she uses the button to curse Christine with something called the Lamia. And in 3 days, it will come and it will drag her soul to hell. Hence the title. So she goes through all these different things to try to keep it from happening, and we see that her sanity and her morals are kind of questioned. Like anything that she can do to stop this thing from happening to her, she'll do it, and it's so it goes through the regular kind of Sam Raimi style. It's not as much dark humor like Evil Dead 2 or Army of Darkness is. It's kind of like the first Evil Dead, and so your party was kind of rooting for her to find a way out of it, and another but as time progresses, you're wondering does she really deserve this to happen to her? Because you see in a prologue in the beginning the same thing that's going to happen to her is implied to happen to a little boy who it kind of thinly maybe implies that he stole something from Sylvia Ganush, a long time before this happens, and you're kind of wondering, it feels like you're seeing it through her eyes, what's going on with her, and of course you never see it from anybody else's point of view because you're focusing more on Christine, but so. And it's got one of those, Sam Raimi kind of endings, and but I think this is a good movie. The effects are good. The music is good, and you're just like I said, you're kind of rooting for her, but then, like I said, as it goes through, there's things that she has to do to stop this from happening, and, it kind of like, if you were in the same position, would you do these things as well? And would you be able to judge somebody who is doing the same things? So, but yeah, I like this movie a lot, and it does kind of creep me out a little bit, but like I said, there's an unrated and a theatrical version on there. So, but as a horror movie kind of heroine, I like Alison Lohman in this film. And next up, it's kind of a loose remake of a film that I hope I'll eventually get to talk about. Like I said, I just grab movies by random and talk about them. And take it out of the sleeve again, because again, stickers. But, like I said, it's kind of a loose remake of a movie from the 80s. But, it's Sorority Row, which is a loose remake of, the house on Sorority Row. So, it's kind of almost in a vein like, well, it's a slasher, but it's also kind of in the vein of like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, where, plot an event that happened drives the plot of the movie. And well, it's about a bunch of girls who are at the Theta Pi sorority, and one night they decide they're going to help their friend Megan kind of get back at her boyfriend Garrett for cheating on her. So they give her like this, like they give the boyfriend this kind of like date rape drug to give to Megan, and she switched it out with something that's like kind of like Alka-Seltzer or something like that, Alka-Seltzer tablet. But she pretends to like have a bad reaction to whatever he gave her, and pretends to be dead. So they drive off, and they go to like this quarry, and they're gonna pretend to like get rid of the body, and the boyfriend Garrett goes crazy and grabs a tire iron and stabs the girl and ends up killing her for real. So the girls decide to dump the body down a chute and never talk about it again. And this is like in their freshman year at the college. So it skips forward in time where they're graduating, and all of a sudden they get messages on their phone, with pictures of the tire iron, and they start being threatened. So they think it's the boyfriend who's gone crazy, and the girls start dying, and so it's a normal kind of revenge slasher kind of plot. And I know as I'm going through it, I'm kind of like not giving names of most of the characters, because some of them they kind of just they run together. There is Chugs. She's more of like the tomboy kind of almost disgusting girl, and of course by her name she's an alcoholic. And then there's Ellie, played by Bruce Willis and Demi Moore's daughter. And Ellie's like the kind of nerdy geeky girl with glasses, and then Cassidy's kind of the kind of final girl kind of archetype. She doesn't kind of take crap from anybody, but she's kind of more of the girl that doesn't have some sort of like stereotype on her. And then Jessica is like the really rich bitchy girl, and then they have Claire, and she's mostly the the Asian stereotype, and she's played by Jamie Chung, who played Mulan on ABC's Once Upon a Time. And so the girls kind of run together, but they have their house mother, and she's played by Carrie Fisher, and she's badass. Carrie Fisher was always badass in anything that she did, even if she did something more comedic. But yeah, so it's mostly a kind of revenge slasher kind of movie. It's okay. I mean, I like the original, I guess you'd say, a little bit better, but 80s movies are kind of like that, and when they remake them, they just try to make them a little gorier and a little more now and a little edgier, but still, it's a pretty good movie. Like I said, it's got Carrie Fisher in it. Carrie Fisher with a shotgun, and so she's just badass to watch. So last thing, it's a multi-feature. So it's a triple DVD set that I bought mostly because I wanted this one movie on DVD, and then I wanted the sequel that I had on DVD, and I was surprised that there was actually a third one of these, because I'd never heard about it. So, but it is Urban Legend, and then Urban Legend's Final Cut, and Urban Legend's Bloody Mary. So, the first one, Urban Legend, takes place at Pendleton University, and it opens with a girl driving to a gas station, and the attendant, played in a cameo role by Brad Dourif, starts acting creepy, and tries to lure her inside, and when the girl finally gets away, he screams at her. He has a bad stutter though, but he screams at her. He's in the back seat. So while he was putting gas in her car, he saw somebody in the back seat of her car and tried to tell her about it. So, which is an urban legend. So that's basically what it is. It's a killer going around and killing people using urban legends. And so there's a lot of, the man with the hook for the hand, and all those other ones, and it's kind of educational because you learn about urban legends. Everybody knows like the man with the hook, and the calls are coming from inside the house, and all sorts of things. So it's got a really good late 90s cast. It's got Jared Leto, and it has Rebecca Gayheart and Joshua Jackson and Tara Reid and Michael Rosenbaum. So a lot of young 90s talent in this movie. And when I first saw the reveal of who the killer is, kind of came out of nowhere, but people say that there are small hints in the movie that indicate who the killer is from like the beginning. But so it has a lot of drama and suspense in it, and creative kills, and it's very 90s, and it is kind of a slasher movie, but it's done really good. When you find out why the killer is doing this, it actually seems like something logical, and I like it. It's a good movie. It's entertaining, to say the least. Okay, Urban Legends Final Cut is the sequel. It takes place at a different university, and it's kind of more like a film school kind of university, and they have an award, a Hitchcock Award, that goes to whatever student film thesis is the best out of all the films that the students enter in, kind of for like their final exam, final grade. And there's a film student named Amy, played by Jennifer Morrison, Emma Swan from Once Upon a Time, and her father is like a documentary filmmaker, does like nature things. So she kind of goes out of that zone and decides she wants to make a horror movie based on urban legends. So again, it goes through a bunch of pop culture urban legends that you get to learn about those, and there are incidences where members of her crew start being killed one by one, and so somebody is after them, and there's another plot where one of the students ends up, I guess they think that he, committed suicide, and all of a sudden he shows back up, but it's not him, it's his twin brother. And so he kind of gets involved in this too. So it's got a pretty good cast too. It's got Anthony Anderson in it, so a little bit of comedic elements. Matthew Davis, Warner from the Legally Blonde movie, and then of course Jennifer Morrison, and Eva Mendes is in it, and I will always call him Joey Lawrence, but he goes by Joseph Lawrence in this movie. He's in it too, and so out of all the characters, his character probably seems the most like the likely killer, or even like the most likely red herring for the killer. When we get the reveal on the killer in this movie, it's not as emotionally kind of driven as the motive of the killer in the first one. It's kind of more a selfish kind of reason. And there's a great scene when we get towards the end credits that gives a callback to the first one. And so Urban Legend's final cut is it's okay compared to the first one. I like the first one a lot better, but still I like this one. It's good. And the last one, I watched it a long time ago when I bought this, because I knew about the first two and I didn't know about this third one, so I'm not really sure about it. But it says 3 teens chant an incantation unleashing a deadly spirit. Is it all a prank taken to gruesome extremes, or has a murdered homecoming queen returned from the grave to wreak vengeance? And I guess that's the titular Bloody Mary. And I'm going to try not to say that anymore, because, yeah, speaking of urban legends, that's one that I will never attempt to do. So, but yeah, it's directed by Mary Lambert, who directed Pet Sematary and Pet Sematary 2. So I guess it kind of tells you a little bit about the quality of it. And the only actor I see of note is Kate Mara. So obviously, I don't know what to think about Urban Legends Bloody Mary, because I haven't seen it in a while. But apparently, it's not really that good, because, like I said, I'd never heard of it until I bought this triple feature. And of course, Murdered Prom Queen and Homecoming Queen or whatever, tale as old as time in the horror movie genre. But I do recommend the first 2 Urban Legend movies, and I guess if you can find this one, I don't know if they make this triple feature set anymore. If you can find it, give it a watch, and I guess you could form your own opinion. But do watch Urban Legend and Urban Legend's Final Cut. Those 2 movies are good. So that's today's selection of horror movies that you can watch for Halloween. And until I see you next time, have a good day.